Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's been a while since we did a Capes and Lunatics Creator Corner, but got another big one here. So big, everyone had to join me. It's me, Phil. Lilith is here. Lilith.
Say hi, Lilith.
Hey.
And of course,
hi, Lilith.
And Charlie said he had to be here, so.
I did. Hey-o, it's Charlie the Professor.
And
Yes,
why did everyone have to be here? Because once again, joining us once again is big Marvel writer Kelly Thompson. Hello, Kelly.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
So glad that you're here.
I know I talked to you once before, but I mean, we'll start off with what's already come. I read the Rogue and Gambit miniseries, and I was like, oh man, I hope I get to talk to her again one day because this book is good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
But I know you said last time that you were like a big X-Men fan, especially like the animated series from the 90s.
It showed in a good way.
Yeah, I definitely didn't hide my loves in Rogue and Gambit. I was like, oh look, someone will let me show what I'm super geeky about, so I'll just do it as hard as I can do it. So that's how you get Rogue and Gambit. Yeah, no, I was really lucky with that book. Like a lot of people of a certain generation, the X-Men animated series was sort of my entry into superhero comics, and Rogue and Gambit were really my first love. Rogue especially, but the pair of them, I loved them on the show, and I quickly found and devoured every appearance I could in the comics. And yeah, I mean, it sort of began a love affair that never really ended for me. So writing them, especially this early in my career at Marvel, is sort of a dream come true. Pretty cool.
So, just out of curiosity, how does that come about? The creation of like the Rogue and Gambit miniseries, is Marvel saying, "Hey, we want to do a Rogue and Gambit miniseries. Who has a pitch for it?" Or just do they say, "Hey, who has a neat pitch?" And you say, "Oh, I'd love to do a Rogue and Gambit miniseries, and here's what I'd do." How does that all play out at the in the office?
Well, I think the truth is it can happen both ways. It happens any number of ways, I suppose. In this specific case, I had been brought in to write a different book, and then that did not work out. That book sort of went ahead, but I basically bowed out / was fired. I mean, no one fired me, but you know, it was like it's hard not to feel like you're fired when everyone's like, this is not working out. But it was like one of those things where you're having a great conversation with editors and higher ups where everyone's like, this is just not really working, but we don't want you to feel bad about that. And what do you want to do? Like, what are the things you're interested in? And so I rattled off a handful of things that I was interested in, one of which was Rogue and Gambit. And they mentioned in that first call, like, oh, well, we've been planning to maybe do something with them, so we'll basically put you at the head of the line kind of thing. So then I did a pitch for it, and it was the better situation you find yourself in, the more pitching you do and the more you build your relationship with a publisher, where I wasn't really competing against other people for it. It was sort of like mine to lose. So they wanted me to do it. They weren't talking to other people, and only if I screwed it up were they going to, like, you know, not give it to me. I then proceeded to try to screw it up because that's how you do these things. My editor and I, Darren, had talked about, you know, he's obviously a big X-Men fan, but he didn't have anywhere near the sort of crazy fan knowledge of Rogue and Gambit that I did. And you know, our first conversation, we were sort of talking broad strokes about what it should be. And it was like, oh, yeah, make it like a fun adventure, maybe a little heist in there. You know, it should be sort of like a comedy, a rom-com, you know, adventure thing. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, that's what I want too. And it was what I wanted. It was what I thought I should do. But then I went out and I reread and read new stuff too, but reread all the old stuff. And I was like, I can't just do just a little light rom-com adventure story. Like, there's too much here. Like there's a chance if we do it that way, it's just going to feel like everything else that's already happened. And I think it's going to retread stuff. And this needs to be like ground shaking for these characters and like put them on a new path, whether that keeps them together or breaks them up. And so I turned in this crazy pitch that was more like Moonlighting meets Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind kind of thing. And Darren was like, what happened? I was like, well, and so I tried to explain it to him, and we ended up sort of meeting in the middle. He let me keep all my sort of esoteric ideas and the kind of concept I wanted to do, but then, you know, we found a way to really insert more like basic superhero stuff too. And I think it was, you know, it's the great thing that happens when you're in sync with someone and you're both bringing something different to the table, where I think it's better. Like if he just let me do my weird thing, like hopefully it still would have been good and maybe people would have liked it, but it wouldn't have been nearly as accessible for as large a number of fans. And so I think we ended up in a really happy medium that I was really happy about.
Yeah, I think it was a good balance of like new readers could jump in, well, like old time fans and new readers. It kind of like you could tell you did your homework, and it sets up like their whole history. You get like the big moments, and like I hadn't even thought of this. I read the books back in the day, and I'm like, oh yeah, the first time they met, like the Shadow King was involved. So there was like that whole shadow on the relationship. It's like, oh, you know, were they originally pushed together by that, and has that like did that color their relationship?
That was crazy to me when I realized going back that like I knew that I had never seen as a teen that I had never seen their first meeting on panel. Like it had never happened, but I just assumed in some of the stories between then and now that someone had done it because it's too good to like not go in there. And when I realized that nobody had done it, I was like, oh, well, that's the first thing I'll do. I'm going to decide how they met. Like that's, you know, item number 1 to check off on the bucket list there. So, yeah.
Were there any mandates from like the higher ups about what you could and couldn't do for the story?
Not really. I mean, I think there was a thing where, you know, Paray started turning in, like they looked very sexy, and I just started writing it really sexy, which I never really thought it was being my forte before. I never really thought I was very good at romance, but it was just like he would draw them really hot. Like he did that first kiss. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, well, I've got to write more of that. And like, it sort of got away from me. And issue 3, I remember I was like, I don't know if they're going to go for this, but I'm just going to try it. And like, nobody stopped me. I don't know if nobody was watching or what.
It's the Power Girl story.
It slid through. So I think there was a directive early on, you know, about we were leaving it sort of loose because we didn't know if they were going to be together or apart at the end. And I mean, we decided pretty early, but when I first did the pitch, we had it open-ended to be so that we could pivot to whichever direction we felt we should go.
Has there been any word if there's going to be more of like maybe like more of like the team up book, or because I mean from the letters page and everything I saw, it looked like the response was good, but I was even thinking even let's get like Rogue and Gambit like leading maybe an X-Force team or something, because
well, when does this air, or is this live? I never know.
We're kind of live. We're live now, and it'll hit the podcast in a couple of minutes.
Can't answer.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay.
But if you
got answers it for us right there.
Yeah, sorry.
No spoilers. It's okay.
So something. Okay.
Yeah, maybe something is going to happen. And we had a really great fan response. I mean, I think our sales numbers, you know, miniseries never do as well as you hope they're going to do for whatever reason. I don't really understand that sort of comic book mindset. I love a self-contained great story. I always think that's really great. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't sort of hit the same way for comic readers. And so I think nobody loved the way our numbers looked, but the critical response and the fan response and like the social media, it was really huge. And I think Marvel was really impressed with it. So I was always very encouraged that as we were going along, and they just really liked the book, which, you know, is a thing. I mean, you know, sales numbers be damned. When they have something they like, they try to be really supportive of it, and I really felt that for the book and the characters. So,
isn't that kind of a similar story with what happened with the Power Ranger Pink 6-issue limited series? Like, I'm a huge Power Rangers fan, so like that's why I'm rocking the shirt, and I really enjoyed that series. Like, wow.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the main series was doing really well, and it was getting this incredible response. And so they were looking at doing spin-off series, and Pink was the first one they were really interested in. And I was lucky enough to be a part of it. And I have to say the fan response to that was huge. It's one of the biggest responses I've ever seen. When that got announced, was like, my Twitter was just like insane. It was crazy. People love their characters, man. They get really attached.
I think he did a really excellent job with the Pink Power Ranger, because I feel like she was kind of like left out. Like, she was still kind of like ditzy, and you really fleshed her out. And it's kind of like almost like in the main book where Zach had his moment, she had her moment in that book. And I found it really, really well done.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a really good time. I was, you know, Teenie Howard really took over at the end of that, and she did an amazing job with it. But we were pretty, when Brendan and I first put that story together, we were pretty excited about all the cool stuff we thought we could do with Kimberly, and, you know, it's pretty cool.
It was.
Now,
I'm glad you liked it.
Speaking of licensed characters, I am kind of curious about the creative process that went on in your work on the Gem and the Holograms series.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, this is a character with an established canon.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a new canon from the movie that's coming in. And you're creating your own sort of needle threading of these ideas. How do you make that happen?
Well, it helps that Sophie was involved too, though, right? In the new process.
She was huge to that process. I mean, we're both fans, but she was a much bigger fan. I mean, you know, part of how she came on board was because she'd done all that cool fan art for it years before. You know, so her passion for it was really, really tangible and palpable. So we didn't, on Gem, we didn't have any involvement with the movie. Like, we didn't know anything about it. They didn't want us to lean into it. They didn't tell us anything really about it. So it was supposed to be very separate. But I mean, for me, and I think for Sophie too, although I don't really like to speak for her, it was all about going back and rewatching the show, most of which, for me, I mostly hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And so it was about rewatching it. And, you know, I always say, when I'm rebooting or reimagining a property, you know, what you try really hard to do is take like the spirit of it and like the core of it and what you think people respond to about it, and like pull that out and reshape it into something that a modern audience, that feels relatable to a modern audience. So, you know, that was very true for Gem. You know, what with changes in technology and social media and the way all of that is, and celebrity, like, what does it look like now? You know, what does the fashion look like? What would it be like for these girls? And then I just wanted to update some things more.
With the body positivity, a lot of people responded really huge to that. I thought that was excellent addition.
Which was huge for having Sophie involved. I mean, I don't think you ever would have gotten it that right with a different artist. You know, it was so important, and we wanted to get sort of some, you know, it always had pretty good racial diversity, but it did not have good, you know, sexual orientation diversity and things. So, you know, we were interested in all those things because, to me, you know, some people, of course, you know, a small vocal minority felt like we were forcing agenda stuff onto that. But to me, the spirit of Gem is completely diverse. Like, it was really diverse for its time. And I think the only way to respect it is to make it diverse for this time too. And so that was a big part of it for us.
Or as some would say, truly outrageous.
Yes, definitely Kimber would say that for sure.
All right, Charlie.
I found the Misfit collection, by the way, the volume for the Misfits. Like, no offense, like better than the hologram stuff, but I like villains and anti-heroes, so.
So do I. So do I.
It shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you know, you can do different things with characters who are a little more gray and whose motivations are a little less clear. I mean, you know, it's why Aja and Kimber are a little more fun to write than Shayna and Jerrica, because like Shayna and Jerrica are just so good, you know, but like Aja and Kimber, it's like maybe they get into a little bit of trouble at least, you know. And so when you're delving into pizzazz, like, and that was another thing about writing the Misfits, is that they get, as cool as they are in the cartoon, they're really
very one-dimensional. Mm-hmm.
They're really underserved by the cartoon. So when you dive into that stuff, there are a lot of opportunities to like flesh that out and like make them real and make them relatable. And, you know, I always felt that, you know, their motivations didn't make a lot of sense in the cartoon, but I could give them motivations in Gem, in the comic, that made a lot of sense, where you'd be like, yeah, if I was the Misfits, I would hate Gem and the Holograms too. Like, they're super annoying, right? But you know, it's like, it's that whole idea of that everybody's the hero in their own story, right? I think that's very true for pizzazz.
But no, you just well, Will mentioned anti-heroes. Do you think is Gambit considered an anti-hero, or is he just like misunderstood?
I don't think he goes all the way to anti-hero, because I think you need more like Frost. Yeah, like you need someone who's like really delved into. I think he's complex and more interesting than a lot of heroes, because he does show that he's sort of an ends justifies the means kind of guy, which sort of heads you in a villainous territory. Like, if you're willing to do whatever it takes to save the woman you love or whatever, then you start getting into a little bit of gray area, which I think makes him interesting.
Sort of a true neutral hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I've seen him as like Robin Hood.
Yeah, I think Robin Hood is not a bad. I mean, he's definitely always trying to do the right thing, but it also depends on the perspective. Hey, I need you to be quiet, please. Sorry.
I always got Aladdin vibes from Gambit. I don't know if it's just because it's like in that era of when Aladdin was on and Power Rangers and X-Men were all like this one big jumble for me as a kid. But I always got Aladdin vibes from Gambit.
So you want a really interesting crossover, is what you're saying.
I mean, we did get a I forget what Aladdin Hercules crossover over on the Disney Channel one time. So, you know, anything's possible. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, make it happen.
All right, Charlie, I know you've been sitting there patiently. I know you have plenty of questions about the West Coast Avengers coming up from Kelly. I don't know how much she can answer, but
yeah, well, I know these are the big questions. This is like the honestly, you have no idea how excited I was when I saw this book. You are bringing one of my absolute favorite characters in the Marvel Universe back into the spotlight, Gwenpool.
That's a great series.
It is. Honestly, I just, you know, as a comic book nerd who has had that exact same wish that, you know, I wouldn't look as good in the shorts, but quite frankly, it's like,
well, so few of us would.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, it just really it excited me to see that, and again, it's sort of this question I have when you're looking at that pitching process. Is it that Marvel wants to do West Coast Avengers? Is that you want to do West Coast Avengers? When you're actually building out that team, does Marvel say, here's who has to be on it? Is it like, here are the people I want to have on it? What are your actual creative processes in that? Where are you for this specifically? How does that evolve? How does that grow? Because I'm just excited.
So that's another interesting one where I probably could have pitched a West Coast Avengers. I don't know that it would have gotten off the ground at a different time. But what happened was Marvel really loved Hawkeye. Like, they would have liked nothing better than for that book to be selling gangbusters every month. But it's just, it's hard to maintain. It's hard to maintain a solo. Like, we were lucky to get 16 issues. It's hard to do a solo if your name's not Batman or Wolverine or, Iron Man. It's the monthly attrition is a killer. So team books managed to do a little bit better because you got more fans coming in for this or that character. But a solo is a tough sell. But they really loved that book, and they were very supportive of it. And I think it was solely based on that Tom Brevoort was like, I think there's an opportunity, a really organic way for Kate to have to form the West Coast Avengers, and we'll bring it back and we'll do it a little differently. And so that was sort of how it happened, I think. And I'm giving credit to Tom, but I should probably be giving credit to Sana. I think she and Alana and I were the first ones on the call. I don't know if Tom had given his blessing for them to say the words West Coast Avengers, because it's traditionally not been one of his favorite ideas. Like, he's like, I don't know why they need that. But Sana said something about that, and then she was the first one who said, what if they don't have funding and it's sort of a mess, and what if we do sort of a Parks and Rec West Coast Avengers? And I was like, now that I'm interested in. That really fits with Kate. That really fits with my comedy style and the sort of stuff I want to write. And so then it came down to us fighting about the cast, which was a lot of fighting. For example, I did not want Gwenpool, not because I don't like her. I think she's a great character. But if you read her book, she doesn't necessarily fit as a cog into a team whole. Sounds sort of naughty now that I'm saying it, but you know what I mean? It's like that series is sort of really brilliant and groundbreaking. It plays with form. It sort of breaks down, how you, it's a very specific thing. And fitting that into an ensemble superhero book is hard. So I was afraid of that. And
is it like the whole fourth wall breaking thing?
Yeah, that's a problem. It's also a problem because, I really want it to be a true ensemble book. But, if you've read Hawkeye, you know that Kate is she has a very strong voice and a very strong personality. There's a lot of sass going on. Mm-hmm. And then you throw Gwenpool at that, who also has that. And you throw Quentin Quire at that, who also has that. And then Clint has a sort of different version of it. And then, Johnny and America are a little less hello, look at me, pay attention to me. But, still, that's a lot of drama to have 4 characters who are sort of like that. And so I was not sure that it was going to work. They were pretty excited about the idea, and I think they loved seeing these sort of weird characters come together on a team. And I was interested in that too. I just wasn't sure I could figure it out. But I will say that the West Coast Avengers #1 script is probably one of my favorite scripts I've written in my career so far. So I hope that means it's working. I hope that means people will like it. I mean, I think you can't come into it expecting to get the same thing you were getting for Gwenpool in her own series. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different. But I think it's a good take on her. I think we're going to push her in some interesting directions that people will be intrigued by. I have a lot of love for the character, so I have no intention of breaking anything. So it all is with good intention,
Well, if you do break anything, Gwenpool can just blame you for it. So it all works out perfectly.
Oh, you use Gwenpool to write yourself into the book, yeah.
You can just walk right off and be like, nope, not having this.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. What the interaction I'm actually most interested to see is America and Gwenpool, just because America is a character who travels these alternate dimensions all the time. And honestly, it doesn't seem out of the ordinary to me that America may have at some time went through a dimension where, I remember where everyone was a comic book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in that universe. Yeah, sure.
America is the trickiest one on the team in a way because, she's not a big personality in the same way that some of those others are. Certainly not the way I write her. She's a little more big action, not a lot of talk kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so it's important that she doesn't get lost. I think I've found a way to integrate her that really makes sense. And we're going to be pushing on that a little bit. Why she's there and why she would be there. You know, she's been on the Ultimates. She's done some really big stuff. So to suddenly be on the new no budget West Coast Avengers is sort of an interesting choice for her. So they're all sort of there with their own thing that they need from it, you know? And I hope that's going to be interesting for people. It's great having America and Kate sort of back on a team. I mean, you know, the funny thing is that I think that Karen Gillan and Jamie McKelvey did like an amazing job sort of low key developing their friendship. But when you go back and read that Young Avengers, you know, they bond through just being on the page together a lot. You don't actually get a ton of them interacting. And a lot of what's happened with the Kate and America friendship is that fans have just, including myself, we just sort of build it up. Like we took this little grain that was offered to us and then we've sort of ballooned it into this amazing best friendship of all time. And so it's sort of fun to play with that now, where part of the reality of them is just the perception fans have of who they are. It's sort of interesting. I'm having a good time. I loved the script for number 2 too. I'm never as impressed. A number 1 is always the hardest. So I was happier with that, but I'm really loving how it's coming together. Like, you know, you mash these things together and you're anxious about it and you're not sure it's going to work. And then when they do work, it's sort of magical feeling, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you said they don't have the funding of the Avengers.
They're sort of on their own.
Okay.
Which is how the reality show element comes into play, which we're not really, you know, there was a lot of people freaking out about like, oh, it's going to be like New Warriors and that ended so badly. And it's nothing like New Warriors, no disrespect to New Warriors. It's just they're mostly, again, think more Parks and Rec. You're getting the confessional element, which I think is the best part of it, the best part of the reality angle. And you sort of know they're there and you know it's sort of a plot point that's going to land on their head at some point, but it's not, they're not like engaging on panel with the camera crew in like a big way and everything. It's very different than the way New Warriors worked. So,
and like the rest of the team. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
So basically, everyone's going to be breaking the fourth wall, so no one's going to think it's odd when Gwenpool does it.
Yes and no. Yes. It's like, why are you doing a confessional? There's nobody there. Like, you know, like, I mean,
yes.
So yeah, it's interesting.
But no, I was going to mention the rest of the team are these young heroes, but what's Clint Barton's role in this?
He's sort of mentoring. I mean, he sort of tells Kate she was right and she does need to form a team. And Kate's very much like, you do it. And he's like, I don't even live here. And she's like, oh my God, now I have to do it. And she's like, but you have to help me. And so he's basically there helping her. I mean, he's the namesake. So, I mean, we tried to keep him, quote, part-time, also so that he's free to like do other stuff and be available for other books and things. But he'll be around a lot. I mean, he's not going anywhere, but I don't know how much he loves it. Like, I mean, he loves Kate, but, you know, do you suddenly want to be the, like, doddering old dad to these annoying teenagers, you know, and like early 20s kids, like, so we'll see. But you know, Kate and Clint are so magical together that you add in a bunch of other annoying characters. It's sort of fun to drive Clint insane. So,
but yeah, is there any I don't know how much any teases you can give us, any villains that are going to show up, or
I can't. This is poorly timed because tomorrow they're gonna be revealing a thing tomorrow morning. So I can't say it.
Oh, about this?
Yeah, just about just a little thing about a villain / classic character that'll be showing up and some artwork. So there will be a villain / classic character showing up in issue 1 that I think people will be very excited about. They are debuting in an unexpected way that will maybe piss some people off, but I think if they stick with it through the first 4 issues, they'll be really happy with how it resolves. It's pretty fun. And we've got a new spin on a classic villain as well. And there will definitely be, you know, Kate's boyfriend is in this team, but there will also be another relationship sort of developing that I think is going to be really fun. So those are our teases.
Very good.
You sound really busy, but do you have any other projects in the pipeline?
I do. One thing looks like it's going to get announced this week. That's for an ongoing, and then I've got another ongoing being announced, I think at SDCC in July.
Can you say what studios or no?
What's that?
Is it Boom Studio? Anything from Boom Studios?
No, it's all Marvel. All this stuff
Okay.
is Marvel. Yeah. And then there's another thing I'm working on. I'm not sure when they're going to announce that though. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff. And then Nancy Drew just debuted last week. So that's 5 issues. There's no concrete plans for something else with that yet, but Dynamite was like really excited about the response we got to it. So hopefully we'll do more of that too.
Awesome. I mean, you seem so busy. Do you have time to read comics or watch TV shows or anything?
I make time for comics and TV shows, and that's about it. So yeah, there's a sleeping, comics, TV, and writing. That's about it.
Well, as a fan, what are your favorite comics and TV shows right now?
Well, for TV, I just was hearing everyone talk about Killing Eve, and so I've been powering through that. I've watched like 6 episodes in 2 days. It's great. We haven't started our Westworld binge yet, so we're behind on that, but I love that. We're watching Billions right now. We're about to finish that out. I love Magicians.
Yeah, such great taste. I like all this stuff.
For comics, yeah, we watch a lot of TV. I mean, Jessica Jones season 2, so good. We watch a lot of really good TV, which I'd like to feel guilty about, but it's also high quality. Like, how can you feel bad about it? So comics, you know, I really, because my time is limited, I do end up really, I have to keep up with Marvel stuff. Not because they make you, but just because your best bet at pitching good stories and telling good stories is to know as much as you can of what other people are doing. So it's a really tough job to stay on top of as much as I can with the Marvel comics. But I also love Lazarus and Bitch Planet, and Saga, of course, is still good after all these years. And the new series Skyward, have you guys seen that? Really good, from Image. It's only 2 issues out, but really interesting. You should check it out. I love X-Men Red. Tom Taylor's X-Men Red is so fun. I'm excited to check out Mariko Tamaki's a new X-23 book, although I'm very bummed about the name situation. I also I'm loving Tom King's Batman, and Mr. Miracle is one of my favorite books. So good.
Oh yeah, Tom King's killing it. No, I'm Batman. I just picked up Mr. Miracle the other day, and I didn't think I'd love that as much as I do, and I do.
Yeah. He's I'm a little angry at Tom King because not that I'll ever get a chance to write Batman necessarily, but he's definitely doing like a lot of the stories I would have wanted to do. So he just got there too soon, and now I'll never be able to do them. Like just the stuff with Catwoman and
the wedding.
That, not the wedding so much. I mean, yes, that's great, but I just mean the relationship and like how the double date issues.
With Superman and Lois, yeah.
That was like my favorite comics I've read in a decade. They were so good. I loved them. You know, they were so fun.
Oh, but something you mentioned, I'm sure you can't confirm this, but I'm thinking I have an idea of what one of those upcoming Marvel books you were working on is. I'm pretty sure they mentioned that they were getting a female writer for Jessica Jones now that Brian Michael Bendis was gone.
I heard that too. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of female writers out there, though. That's
true, but I mean, you're a Marvel writer right now, so.
I am. I don't know. Could be. I see a lot of people saying it should be me, which is very flattering.
Well, I think we mentioned last time there are a little bit of similarities between Jessica Jones and Kate Bishop, the female detective, and I mean, you wrote Jessica in an issue of Kate's Hawkeye series.
Two issues. It was so fun. I think that Jessica and Kate, when you're doing Kate as the detective, as we were, there's so much overlap, but the differences are so interesting to me about like the way they approach things and their like outlook on life and everything. Their sort of internal voice. So it was really fun to sort of pair them up in that environment. But I will not try to hide it. Detective stories are my favorite stories. It's why it's one of the reasons my pitch for Kate Bishop was to take her back to the PI thing. I even did, when I did a middle grade book, it was Mega Princess, and it's like a kid who wants to be a detective instead of a princess and tries to find her brother when he's kidnapped. So it's like, it's the place that I like, and Nancy Drew too. I mean, it's just, I keep going back to these wells because I love detective stories.
Oh, they need to give you a shot on Batman then.
I agree. Let's start a letter writing campaign.
Because I know me and Lilith, we love when Batman's they actually do detective stories with Batman.
Yes. I mean, I love him as a superhero, obviously.
Oh yeah,
world's greatest detective. Yes, more of those stories, please. Yeah, for sure.
I just want to touch on one more thing because she has so much Star Wars in her.
Oh yeah,
Star Wars comic. So, like, are you a total Star Wars nerd, or how did that come about?
I think I'm definitely not as deep as some people are because, I mean, like, I haven't read all the novels and,
It's okay. They're not canon anymore, thanks to Disney. No worries.
Right. Very disappointing to a lot of people I know. But, I mean, I love the films, and I've loved them since I was a child, and I love them now, and I never get tired of them. And, I mean, listen, I don't make Rogue and Gambit as Leia and Han Solo jokes for nothing. I'm definitely, it's a place I go back to for my geek touchstone for sure.
Did you see Solo yet?
I haven't yet. I hurt my knee, so I've been sort of laid up. But writing Phasma was pretty scary because she's just a really tough character, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no interior narration," and you're like, "Wait, what?"
What?
We're talking about a character that doesn't like to speak, that never shows her face, and you don't want us in her head. And I was like, I'm going to have to kill myself now. But it turned out to be a great thing. Like, it was so smart that they didn't want to be in her head. And I think that was the right call. One of those great lessons that you bump into very unpleasantly over and over again, where someone putting restrictions on you or telling you no can often lead to a much better thing.
Well, with the Star Wars thing, since it is like they come from these live action movies and stuff, do they give you notes about who each character is, or is it just, or are there notes like, don't do this, don't do that?
There's very much a pitch process where, you're running your stuff through Marvel, and then Marvel is sending it, Marvel decides they approve it, and then they send it up the chain to see what notes you get from Lucasfilm. They give you, I had for Phasma, it was different for the Star Wars Annual versus Phasma. For the Star Wars Annual, it wasn't as high profile. It wasn't as big a story. So it was more like they approved a pitch, and then they approved the characters I created, and that was sort of it. And we just went from there. With Phasma, there was definitely like a conference call where they were telling us, what they could tell us about the movie that was coming out, and where the character could start and where she definitely needed to end up. And then it was up to me sort of how to get her there. There was a thing, I wanted to start the first book with doing sort of a reimagining of the garbage chute scene, with Phasma kind of taking a very different approach to the way Han and Leia and Luke do in, New Hope. But they didn't want that. And I was really surprised by that, because I thought Star Wars loves to like go back to the hoop, right? They love to show you a similar thing that we all know, but like recontextualized. So I was really surprised, but they just felt it was going to be too similar. And so I was like, well, fine, she'll just blow it open in page 1 and we'll just start there. So yeah, so you always bump into strange things. So we had a couple conference calls, and then I also got a couple huge PDFs full of like new movie information so that I could look at guns and armor and all sorts of things. So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
So
I thought you did a great job with them, though. Like I'm a little bit of a Star Wars nerd, but I only believe in the first 3 movies. So you know.
I mean, I haven't rewatched 1 through 3 since I saw them the first time, however long ago that was. So 4, 5, and 6 are certainly where my heart is. And I think the new movies are really interesting. I don't feel the same way about them, but that's probably just my age. I don't feel
exactly
that I did when I was a kid. So, but thank you. It was tricky. You know, Phasma was very different than everything else I'd written at that point. So it was a bit of a challenge, but I ended up really enjoying it.
Now, Lilith had made mention about how a lot of what was the chaotic canon of Star Wars has been thrown out by Disney, and of course, but now what you're creating now actually is the real official canon. So the things you're putting on the page, for many nerds, you're basically writing the Bible. Does that ever strike you when you're writing this, that there's people that are going to take this way too seriously?
Yes. And you basically just can't think about it. It freaks me out way too much. I definitely, I got a little taste of it when I did the Star Wars Annual, and I got to create new characters, specifically Pash and Devane and her robot Bruce. And it was one of those things where you're working away, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, I'm creating a Star Wars canon Star Wars character. That's insane. I can't believe I've tricked anyone into letting me do this. Just keep your head down.
That's the nerd goal.
Hope they don't notice. And in case you only get one shot at it, it should obviously be a huge muscled chick who likes to hit people with bricks. Like, that's it. Just do it. So when we got to Phasma, I had already had that experience of like, okay, this is going to be really surreal at a point. But I mean, honestly, you really can't think about it, or you psych yourself out. It's sort of like, if you look at it, it's like looking at the sun and then you're fucked. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but so you just have to not look at it and just go about your business. Otherwise you get too psyched out,
I mean, you could say that about any of your stuff. I mean, the Marvel stuff certainly.
Working on, like, say, Captain Marvel at the time that you did, where it's like this really huge resurgence and a lot of interest in the character, and you were working with, Kelly Sue. So
yeah, that was totally intimidating. But at least I felt like she sort of had me, like I knew how good she was, and I was like, well, if I screw this up, she can save us,
I thought you two worked really wonderfully well together. Like, I don't even like a lot of Captain Marvel stuff, but I did actually go out of my way to pick it up, and it was really good.
Thank you. That means a lot. I think but there's definitely, you're right, where there's a thing where that happens. I mean, after the Hawkeye pitch sort of got picked up and we were going to do it, I sat down and I was like, I'm an idiot. Like, why would I try to follow up like the quintessential Hawkeye run by Fraction and Aja? Why would I do that to myself? And it worked out okay, thank God.
I don't know. I think sometimes that might be better because, like, people it's like laying a road. One person does this, the next person does this, and by the time you're done, you have like a pattern.
Yeah, no, I think it turned out really well. But there was a point at which I was like, I am a dum-dum. Like, why would you try to follow in those footsteps,
Oh, are you like a huge Hawkeye nerd, or?
I am. I mean, I had to end up doing a lot of research, to make sure I got everything sort of as right as I could. But so I ended up reading a lot more stuff, and I've read a lot of the West Coast Avengers stuff now too. This is the stuff that I hadn't read originally. But the Fraction Aja stuff, particularly to me, I'm a really big fan of it. I think it's like a really interesting modern take on superheroes. I think it's really emotional, but it's still really action oriented. I think Aja and Annie Wu are sort of geniuses. So those are tough footsteps to follow in. Fortunately, I had Leo Romero and Jordi Belair, who are incredible. So helped a lot.
No, and I mean your work is great because, like, when I read that Kate Bishop Hawkeye stuff, I'm like, yes, this is the character from that series, and it's not like some people might be like, oh, this character seems kind of different, but no, I mean,
well, I actually have a slightly weird perspective on that I try to talk about sometimes, because there are some people who feel like that my Kate, is not the same Kate from the Fraction Aja stuff or the Annie Wu stuff. But they seem hung up on the Aja stuff. And my take on it is because the stuff where she seems more perfect and serious, that's drawn by David Aja, to me, that's how Clint views Kate.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she's in LA and it's the Annie Wu stuff where she's a little goofier and out of pocket, that's more how Kate views herself. And so since our book was in her perspective, really, that was sort of, we tapped a little more into that. I sort of love how Clint, sees her as so much better than him. But I don't think Kate really sees it that way, and so she's very aware of herself being a work in progress that screws up as much as she gets right, So anyway, so that's sort of my take on the Fraction Wu Aja stuff, and what I decided to do for our stuff and how I approached it. So.
Very good insight. I appreciate that, actually.
Thanks.
So does anyone have anything else? This woman has stuff to write.
Yes, I know. I just need her to get a drop of her name, and you're listening to Capes and Lunatics, and then we can get out of here. No problem.
You just want me to say my name?
And you're listening to Capes and Lunatics. Yep.
Okay. I'm Kelly Thompson, and you're listening to Capes and Lunatics. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Everyone, if you haven't read Rogue and Gambit, go pick it up.
Pick it up.
Pick up everything, but especially go out and pick up West Coast Avengers #1. When is it's August, right?
August for that, and Rogue and Gambit trade will be out in July. Nice. So yeah, it's exciting.
And if you like Power Rangers, pick up the pink.
Power Rangers Pink is out there. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
West Coast Avengers is already on my pull list. So.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, Kelly. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
Will do.
So.
All right. Get it, Timmy. I'll get it edited, Philip.
All right. Well. Another great interview.
Hey, look, I wore pink in honor of Pink Ranger.
Avengers.
West Coast.
Power Rangers are kind of like Avengers.
Yeah, sort of.
Well, you talk Power Rangers.
Yes, I finally managed to talk Power Rangers on the podcast.
Yay!
To be stifling.
Are we gonna say goodbye? Are we gonna say our names?
Nah.
Oh, well, I mean, we won't. I mean, it's. Oh, I mean,
Am I gonna sing my
Nobody's
song?
watching.
Everybody's here for Kelly. Come on.
Oh, okay.
Capes
Well,
and
then,
Lunatics,
we've been.
Capes and Lunatics at gmail.com. Voicemail 614-382-2737. Your creator. Come join us. See how much fun we have.